Welcome back to the BJJ Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Ford. My guest today is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Clark Gracie. He's a two-time Masters World Silver medalist, a purple belt IBJJF Asian Open champion. He's competed and medaled at several other regional and national competitions, and today he runs his own school out of Honolulu, Hawaii, called Gracie Allegiance Honolulu. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be joined today by Michael Chu. How are you today, Michael?
Good, thank you, and I'm very honored to be on your show. Thank you, Ryan.
Of course. Michael, you have a very, very interesting story, man. So I'm really looking forward to diving in and hearing about everything you've been through in your life, which eventually led you to open an academy and live the jiu-jitsu lifestyle full time. But let's rewind the clock a little bit. Tell us about where you're from originally and what your life was like before you found jiu-jitsu.
I'm originally from Honolulu, Hawaii, born and raised in Oahu. And life before jiu-jitsu, for me, I guess, was pretty chaotic. I was a police officer at the time, and I started jiu-jitsu about 10 years into my career as a police officer. And I would say I was pretty stressed out. Just everything wasn't good for me mentally, physically, my health. Everything was coming to a crashing halt, I would say. But jiu-jitsu helped me become much more calmer and more aware of my actions, and it made me humble. I guess that was the immediate lesson I learned, was to become humble and more respectful. After 10 years of being a police officer, I got caught up. I guess I was a bit arrogant, trying to work overtime and chasing the bad guys and trying to arrest people and write tickets. And just at the same time, I was trying to get promoted. So I got really caught up in that mindset of trying to prove myself out on the road. And I think looking back now, that was a recipe for disaster. And jiu-jitsu really made me slow down and take an account for my life and really be responsible for my actions. Not be so reckless, drinking and going on 4 hours of sleep and just drinking a lot of Red Bull and coffee, and I guess not even caring about my own health at the time. So jiu-jitsu put the brakes on that crazy lifestyle I was living.
I've talked to many law enforcement officers on the show over the years, and also just in my personal life as I meet jiu-jitsu guys who are law enforcement officers. And it's obviously one of the highest stress jobs that exists in the world. I mean, it's a job where every day you wake up and it could be your last day. And that's a reality that people face. It's that most people that go to work or wake up in the day don't ever have to really worry about. Do you feel that you suffered any post-traumatic stress disorder from your time being a cop? Did you experience traumatic incidents while you were on duty, or was this more just you pushing yourself kind of to the grindstone to move upwards in the ranks?
I would say all of the above. I was just pushing myself too hard, working a lot of overtime and special duty and trying to get promoted and being selfish on just grinding, And I also suffered, I guess, after I got fired, I didn't have an identity. And that's what I learned after, was I don't have a life, and what do I do now? And the way I got fired too was very damaging, because I thought that the department had my back, and I realized later they didn't care. I had a few friends after, but being fired the way it was and just thrown to the side, I was abandoned, and I didn't have a life to turn to except jiu-jitsu. And again, that's one of the reasons why I would say jiu-jitsu saved me as a person, was that's the only thing that brought me a reason to wake up in the morning, was to train, study, get more into why was I doing jiu-jitsu in the first place. It changed over the years, But at that particular time, at least I had something to look forward to after I got fired. So
And Michael, if you
that was, yeah.
Mike, I'm sorry to interrupt you. If you don't mind me asking, was the reason for your firing the same reason that you served time, or was this something prior to that?
Well, technically, the department fired me because I didn't go to work, but
Okay.
I was out on health reasons, and I had a doctor's note, and I was taking like stress leave, but they fired me anyway.
I see.
I had a pending case. I did have a pending case against me, which I later did time for, but technically they just fired me because I didn't go to work, but I was stress leave with doctor's note. And that's another thing that I was upset about was, you know, being severely depressed and kind of suicidal and being monitored by a doctor. The department has policies that allowed me to take time off without pay with the doctor's note. And I did have that, but they fired me anyway.
So that obviously leads us to the chapter of your life that I think is a very interesting and unique experience you went through. So you went from being a law enforcement officer for many years to being a federal inmate. Would you mind telling the story of how that happened and what that experience was like? Because I imagine that must have been pretty crazy.
Yeah, that was a huge event that changed my life, definitely. At the time, I was with this woman who I later learned was selling marijuana. And she had shipped a portion or a small amount of marijuana through the mail. And the police intercepted it and they raided her apartment. And her parents opened the package. I didn't know at the time. And then I was visiting her, and hours later, as I went up to visit her apartment, the hit team was already there. And they caught me, and they ended up pretty much charging me for what she did was selling marijuana. Yeah.
And so you ended up serving how long in federal prison?
I did 6 months in federal prison.
What was that like, man? Because I know that obviously anytime a former law enforcement officer ends up in prison, it's more dangerous for you than just your average inmate. So that must have been a pretty overwhelming experience. What do you remember most about that?
I remember having to fly myself to LA because I had to turn myself in and pay for my own flight to do my time. They sent me to federal prison in LA. And it was weird taking a flight with no bags, no luggage, knowing that I'm going to knock on the door and say, here I am, I'm turning myself in, was a really nervous feeling. And to say goodbye to my family was hard. Yeah.
I can imagine.
But they did help me out. They said that we're going to keep you confidential. We won't let the other inmates know. And what I realized later was they're initially going to put me in protective custody, which is isolation. They call it the SHU, where you just locked in a small cell by yourself and you have no free time. You're just going to be in a box. And they use that as punishment, the SHU. And I didn't know. They're walking me to that area. And one of the guards said, why are you putting this guy in the SHU for? You know, like, what did he do? And I'm like, oh, protective custody. He didn't do anything, but he's a former cop. And he's like, I don't think you want to do your 6 months in the SHU. You know, you should go general population. I'm like, I have no idea. And then they put me back down to the admin, and I spoke to I think the assistant warden, and he told me, you want to go with general pop or you want to be in protective custody, which is the SHU. I said, I want to go general pop because I know I can at least mingle and meet the other guys and play basketball and, watch TV. In the shoe, there's nothing. You're going to be reading the walls and going insane. So he said, well, we're going to do our best to keep you secret, but you can't say anything. And we're going to send you to General Pop, but you got to make sure you keep your mouth shut about your past. And we're going to make sure that no one finds out who you are. And you're going to have to just sign off on this paper saying that I elected to go general population. So I did. And they sent me to general pop. And it's kind of like what you see in the movies or TV shows where you walk in and you hear the doors unlatch. The metal doors just go and it opens, and the guard walks you in, and there's tears, and everybody kind of stops and looks because we're like the new guys, and we come walking in. I'm holding my blanket and whatever, my uniform they give me. I'm just looking up like, oh shit! Like there's like 100 guys, and they're all tatted up, and they're all just like the movies. They look like skinheads and gangsters and whatnot, and I'm just frozen. And they're like, "Hey, come over here." They just told me to go here, go there, and they put me in a cell with a roommate. And I'm just following what they're telling me to do, and I was just kind of confused because they put me with my people, like Asians, but they roomed me with a Mexican, and that guy wasn't straight. He was a little bit, I don't want to use that term, but, and they're kind of laughing, and I didn't know they putting me with the wrong guy, but they're just like tossing me with whoever. So I'm trying to make myself comfortable. And like a few hours later, they're like, "Hey, dude, get out of there. We're not going to leave you with this guy." Okay. So they switched me again, and they put me with my people. And then I learned my people is the Asians and Islanders were called a car, which is a group of people you're supposed to be with. And I was put in with the Asians and the Islanders. And those guys kind of told me what to do and gave me a rundown of how shit runs in prison. I had to adapt really quick because majority of the guys in LA are Mexicans. They're a big majority, and blacks and whites. So we're like a small minority, and we just have to kind of go along with what they said and try to make yourself, I guess, not stick out from the crowd and don't cause any drama. That's something I learned in prison. Like, you don't want to be loud. You don't want to cause trouble. You just want to do your time and be a good inmate. And that part was eye opening because the culture is different. It's obviously way different than outside society. But I was just basically a cop get thrown into a prison world, and I had to shift my mind that, okay, I'm not a cop. I got to learn how to be a criminal in a criminal environment. I had to learn their lingo. I had to learn their language. I had to learn their culture. Really not to get stabbed was my number one thing. I didn't want to get beat up. So I had to ask people, okay, what's the right way to do things? Where should I sit? How does the meals run? How does rec run? What's the normal protocol when morning comes? Where do I go? And they gave me the rundown. And after a few days, I kind of relaxed and figured out what to do. Yeah.
What a dilemma to find yourself in, where you have to make the choice between going to the SHU or going to Gen Pop, because there's obviously tons of evidence and research that shows that any long amounts of time, even as much as a week, in the shoe by yourself in isolation, can have psychological effects on people. And some people don't recover from the psychological effects that being isolated like that can cause. But then at the same time, it's like, man, when they're telling you that you have to sign a waiver to go into Gen Pop because if someone does find out you were a former police officer, dude, that's a hell of a decision to have to make. It's also interesting that you mentioned that, and this is obviously very common knowledge, but when you go to prison, you typically have to stay with your race. You have to stay with the people that look like you. And I think for people that live normal lives on the outside, especially like jiu-jitsu guys, who we most academies are pretty diverse, and you have friends of all different backgrounds, to go into a place where now all of a sudden it's like you can't even say hey or be cool with anybody that doesn't look like you. That's got to be weird too. So did anyone find out that you had a jiu-jitsu background? Is that something that ever came up as you got to know people and kind of mingle with other people?
Yeah. I guess they did find out. We'd talk like, what did you do? Or, just your job and stuff like that. So I just told them, I used to work in a hotel and I trained jiu-jitsu, and they're pretty interested. And under the rules, you're not supposed to train. You're not supposed to rightfully train. But they wanted to learn jiu-jitsu, so I showed them some moves. And I met a pretty cool guy that he was a former boxer, really good boxer from Maui, and he showed me some boxing and I showed him some jiu-jitsu, and we just were training every week. So I ended up picking up boxing in my time there, and showed him some jiu-jitsu moves, and people were interested, but we couldn't really roll. So I just show them some arm bars and rear naked choke and things like that. Nothing serious, but just to pique their curiosity. And the boxing I learned was really helpful. He was a really good trainer, so he showed me how to work mitts. Mitts. So we would use our flip-flops for hitting, and then I'd wrap up my hands with like old socks, and we'd get down with the 1-2, the 1-2-3, the combos, the hooks, and he was fast and he was good. He'd just be like pop, 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 and then I had to duck and pop, 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 and then he'd come at me and duck the other way, and man, I just get a really good sweat, and I just bug him every day. Can we train? Because I just ended up falling in love with boxing, and I ended up using it in my fitness leader, how to hold mitts, because there's a technique that people don't realize, that when you hold mitts, you're not supposed to pound that guy's hand. You're not supposed to crack it. You're supposed to roll with the punch. So as they punch in your mitt, you're supposed to roll that pop. It's a very subtle technique that you get that guy to, like, clipping the mitt, not pounding it, because you can damage his hand. And the angles, you got to learn the angles of how to hit, like an uppercut or a jab or a hook. Hooks coming at this angle. So he showed me all those little techniques and nuances, and I was able to carry that over as a trainer. So I was teaching some mitt work, which is okay for a workout. Yeah.
That's awesome. No, I love boxing too. I box every week, actually, and like you said, mitt work is really is an art within itself. Like, it's not anyone that can just hold the pads, and finding someone that really knows what they're doing, and then of course you by proxy learning the art of holding mitts and things like that. It's a really cool experience when you find the right person that can teach well. Yeah. So let me ask you this: between your experience learning boxing in prison and being a jiu-jitsu guy, did you ever have to use your skills in self-defense while you were serving time?
Oh, during my time, I didn't actually get down physical. Good. But I got threatened. I got called out. Yeah. If somebody bumps you or calls you a bitch, you got to do something. I mean, I got tested, and for a little while, they're trying to peg me as a I guess I'm not a straight guy, like starting rumors.
Yeah.
And I just had to confront people and just put them in their spot. Like, you know what? You better stop talking shit. I'll straighten you out. And a few times we get face to face, and I'm not gonna back down. Like, if you're ready to rumble, I'm all for it, bro. I don't mind doing time in a shoe, kick your ass. And because they knew I did jiu-jitsu, those guys back down. They're like, oh, we're cool, man. We're cool. And they walk away. Because in prison, if you get disrespected, you got to stick up for yourself. If you don't, then you're going to get picked on and they're going to come at you and they're going to start taking your shit and they're going to make you your bitch. And I wasn't going to be nobody's bitch. So I'd rather fight, get my ass kicked, and earn some respect. And that's prison. And another thing too is like, you just can't outright beat somebody up just because. You need permission. And a few times I had some trouble. I'd have to go up to my leader and ask, is it okay if I go kick this guy's ass? And he's like, no, don't, I'll go talk to him. And they always try to settle it, especially between different races. You just don't go up and you start trouble. If the guy's making trouble, you got to go talk it out and you got to sit down with people. That's the thing. You got to learn the culture. Otherwise, you'll get stabbed. I mean, you're just straight up going to get shanked. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of
you learn
politics.
real quick.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of stories like this over the years. I've not on the show, but outside the podcast, where guys are. There's a lot of politics to understand. There's a lot of. While there's a structure that their prison is being run by the warden and the corrections officers, internally there really is a culture in a whole world where it really is run by the prisoners. And if you don't understand the right steps to take, you can end up getting yourself in a lot of trouble. I've heard some stories about things as simple as like a debate about who, like between like whether or not LeBron James or Michael Jordan is the best basketball player, turns into like a serious fight, because these are just guys that are in there that have nothing going on. They're angry, they're pissed. The smallest of words and disagreements and infractions can cause big problems. So I'm glad that you never had to get physical with anybody. How would you describe the remainder of your time that you were there? Did it go pretty smoothly once you were able to stick up for yourself and show people that you weren't going to back down? Was it pretty smooth sailing from there?
Yeah, I would say once I settled in, it was a good time. You know, I was studying, read a lot of books. I got my certification as a personal trainer in there.
Nice.
I was able to work. I was working the child line, serving meals. So I ended up getting the extra food, which was very helpful. And I was also a janitor. That helped me a lot. And I was able to make a lot of friends in there. So what I guess a lot of people don't know, we don't deal with cash currency. There's no money. So what we do is like we trade. We do a lot of trading. So I learned how to trade for like snacks or dry noodles as currency, and packets of tuna, peanut butter, whatever. And then you can work and earn, or you can trade and get like a haircut. People don't know, like, you need a haircut. So I had to pay a barber, packets of peanut butter or candy bars or Snickers, and you got to learn how to trade. And that was part of like learning business. Like, what can I do to earn and what can I do to get my services done? Because getting a haircut, no one's doing it for free.
Wow.
So you got to figure things out. I mean, just to get clothing items, soap, toilet paper was a big issue in prison. I mean, they would ration us 1 roll per week.
Damn.
If you don't know how to wipe properly, you're gonna run out of toilet paper. Yeah. So that was another viable commodity, was toilet paper. When I got out, I was happy to buy as much toilet paper as I could. And I got sick of peanut butter because I was eating unlimited peanut butter. It's weird.
I imagine the cashier at Walmart is like, man, I've never seen a guy so stoked to buy toilet paper and peanut butter here.
Yeah, and pork and beans and just Snickers, things outside people don't even understand. But when you get limited, and toilet paper was just an example, we fight over that shit. I remember just hiding my rolls of toilet paper because I don't want to go take a dump with no toilet paper. You know, and that was a factor. I'm like, okay, I'm thinking, oh crap, I gotta stock up on what I need, and I don't want to waste anything. And I ended up really budgeting my money and budgeting what I'm gonna get, but also hustling to make. I was making and earning, so I learned how to earn. And I was trading off magazines for Snickers and whatever I could give in value, I was earning too.
Wow.
So it made you really think outside the box how to survive in there.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Man, something that's really interesting about that, you mentioned that haircuts aren't free. See, I would have assumed that anything hygiene related would have been covered by the prison itself. I assume that they would have kept people groomed and clean and you know, at least at the very least healthy. You know, not getting all out of hygiene.
No.
Wow. So so it's another prisoner that does the haircuts. How do they do that without scissors?
Yeah. So the guards will bring in certain days. They'll bring in the buzzers, you know, the clippers.
Oh, okay.
And they'll sign it, and then they got to sign it out to prison barbers.
Okay.
But prison barbers are busy. They're booked, and they're supposed to cut free, but it's not free. You got to give them something.
Yeah.
Or else he's going to jam up your hair, or he won't cut you. And I want a good haircut. So I don't know, you got to give them at least a Snickers or some soup, you know, the dry noodles, the instant noodles. Yeah. We call that soup. Yeah. So you got to give them a cup of soup or whatever you have of value just so he can fit you in. I mean, he's got a line out the door. And that guy wasn't in my car. You know, he wasn't my race. So I had to find out what he needed. He liked magazines, so I got him magazines. And he fit me in, he cut my hair. And then, you know, you kind of find out what they like and what they don't like. And he liked to work out, so I work out with him, show him something, he showed me something. But I just started thinking, who's the main guys in here? Who's the guys I got to know so I can get what I need? So I got with pretty much every leader of every car just to be friends with them and make sure we're cool. Because if something comes down, I want you to talk to me first. Yeah. Before shit hits the fan and I end up getting stabbed. So that's something I learned is like you got to play politics in there.
Wow. So during all this time, no one ever found out you were a cop formally?
No, luckily no.
Wow.
But it got close. I mean, I had one incident where the social worker psychologist came in and she did her checks on everybody. You know, how you feeling? Do you feel like killing yourself today? And what did you do before? And this particular day she came in and I didn't like to lie either because she's an official employee of the prison. So she's giving me the questionnaire and she's like, oh, what did you do before? I said, oh, I used to do investigation work. And she's like, what type of investigation work? Who did you work for? I said, oh, for the government. And I'm just kind of like beating around the bush because I don't want to say I was a cop because there's other inmates around me and behind me. It's an open forum.
Wow.
And she kept pressing me like, oh, you got to tell me specifically what type of investigation and for what government. Was that health or social work or? And I'm just looking at her like I can't tell you.
Yeah, like, it's like, get
and she's looking at me funny like, government. Okay, that could be a array of many different things.
Right.
Michael, can you be specific?
Let's just leave it at government. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm
IRS. I worked
like,
for the IRS. How about that? Yeah.
I was like trying to like You don't get it. They're gonna kill me. And I'm like, you know what? You go find out. I got a file.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm not talking anymore. And I just walked away.
Wow.
You know, like I had to act like I'm mad because I can't say I'm a cop.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at her like,
boy, you would think they would have put the word out among the staff that like, hey, you know, this guy, we're trying to look out for him and his best interests. So that's unbelievable, man. Michael, what belt were you during all this time?
oh, when I went in, I was a blue belt.
Blue belt.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then when you got out, tell us about when you were released. So you were serving in California, correct?
Yeah, when I released, I had to fly back home to Honolulu, and I went and I did time in a halfway house for a couple weeks. That was a really crazy experience because I was rooming with 5 other guys, and the guy shared a bunk with, you know, he just got out doing 25 years.
Wow.
For a double murder.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and this guy was really off because he was in there still prison mindset, wearing his boots in the house, wearing his tag. He would just talk about his prison life, and he was still like 100% prison.
Yeah, institution.
And we're like transitioned to regular living. But my bunkie did 25 years and it was just all prison. And I kind of was scared because he was almost like a lifer at the time. He's like 50 something, and he was a former pimp. So he didn't have skills outside either. And the poor guy, we have to go out and look for jobs and try to get reacclimated to society. He didn't have nobody. He didn't have no friends, no family in Hawaii. And so I called up my dad and I said, do you have any extra clothes I can give this guy? Because he got to go out for jobs and interviews and get back to society. He just had his prison clothes. So my dad said, okay. He put a bag together of his old jeans, shorts, T-shirts, dress shirts, whatever, delivered it and gave them to him. And he was so happy. You know, he was just like stoked. And he was wearing all my dad's old clothes, and he could go out and not get stared at wearing prison clothes. And he felt better. And then I tried to teach him how Hawaii is nowadays with the iPhone and social media and stuff like that. He was tripping. Like, he never saw an iPhone before.
Yeah.
You know, and how social media works and YouTube and all that. He was just blown away. It's like getting somebody from Back to the Future.
Yeah, you're frozen in time.
And then zoom, he's into, bam, 25 years in the future. And he's just like, what the hell is this?
That's crazy.
He's just like freaking out, you know? So I felt good helping him out, getting him back on his feet and stuff like that. But I don't know what happened with him. But I really wanted to be his friend because he had a little bit of past trauma. He'd be like, fuck this guy, fuck that guy, fucking, you know, he did this stuff in prison to stay alive. And I'm like trying to sleep. And now he's like talking about all his fights and how he almost killed a guy and this guy got raped. I'm like trying to sleep like, oh man, like, don't get no flashbacks, bro. Like sleeping right underneath you, bro.
of all the bunks to be under, man. Yeah,
was that guy for 2-time murder. I'm like, I'm gonna make this guy my friend because I don't want him killing me.
For sure, that's probably a good call. It's crazy when you see people that have served long times, like who become really institutionalized like that. And
yes,
you want to see them if they've been released and done their time. You want to see people adapt back into society and do well, and not repeat crimes and things like that.
Yeah,
but, man, it almost seems like it's just inevitable for some people. You get your brain gets wired in such a because 25 years. I mean, geez, man, that's I mean, you know, imagine. I don't know how old you are. I'm about to be 38. Imagine if you took 25 of my 38 years. I mean, that's most of my life living one very specific type of way. And then not only that, you have what you talked about, the kind of the stuck in time aspect of the whole thing, where all of a sudden you're out and dude, technology, like the world didn't stop and wait for you. Like everything is different. So Michael, let me ask you this. So we go now from the halfway house to you becoming a black belt under Clark Gracie and a school owner. Put the pieces together there for us. How did that all come together?
Well, when I was in prison, I wrote a lot of like journaling, and I wrote a lot of goals. So one of my goals was to win an IBJJF tournament and like go 100%, jiu-jitsu. Just put my heart and soul and see how far I can take it. So I got back into training, tried a couple schools my first year. I found a school to train as a blue belt, and I was taking privates also. And also trying to work to earn some money again. And I became a personal trainer, but most of my focus was jiu-jitsu. So ended up earning my purple belt, and I went super hard at purple. I trained 6-7 days a week, did a lot of privates, also went to class, went to open mat, did garage training. I just rode a ton and competed every other month. And of course, initially I was losing. My first tournament was Pans. I got pretty much smashed. I learned, fix my game, fix my strategy, and just kept competing. Did Naga, did Fight to Win. I did, I think San Jose. I did Nogi Worlds. And finally, towards the end of my purple belt, I went to the Asian Open in Tokyo. And that's when I finally won gold. And I was like relieved, it was over 10 year chasing that gold. And I was happy that I won. And I kind of was like, okay, now what? That I finally won my IBJJF gold. And I was just taking it day by day, just kind of like training just on the regular, not so intense. Trying to expand my game too, like learn different guards, learn different passing, kind of open up my game. And right around that time, Clark Gracie came for a seminar. And I remember him telling me, well, I asked him, I said, what do you think of my game? Can you give me some feedback? And he's like, well, I feel your game is just too points oriented. Like you're doing sweeps and you're doing passes, but you're not threatening enough from your guard. Like, I don't feel you trying to get the submission. So he said, I want you to be more dangerous with your guard. Like, an omoplata, an armbar, I want you to fire that. I mean, have intention of making guys back out of your guard, because you're just hanging out there playing lasso spider, whatever, and you're just cruising. Like, don't do that. He's like, I want you to be aggressive with your guard and attack. I said, okay. So the next 6 months I worked on that. I just ended up firing from my guard and just hitting submissions, or at the very least, get a sweep off of the submission and make them defend me. I don't want them to just be comfortable in my guard, which Clark was right. Guys are just comfortable in my guard. So that helped me at my purple belt to expand my game also. And then we had 2020 to shut down from COVID, and my school got shut down. So I ended up training in my house. And that went on for weeks where we couldn't go out. So I just kept training in my house with a few friends. And then I got in touch with Clark again. And then he was like, what am I doing? I said, well, our school shut down and I'm just training in my house. And he's like, well, I'm going to put you an offer. Let me know what you think. I want you to join Gracie Allegiance. And if you can come down to San Diego and you pass the test, or just to show me that you're deserving of a brown belt. I might consider it, but you got to make it happen, Mike. I'm like, there's a shutdown. There's thousands of COVID positive. You're not supposed to leave the house and whatnot, except for business or health or see a doctor. So I had to find a way to get out there. I mean, we had to have papers to get on the plane. You had to get tested before you come back. All those regulations. And I just went out there in the peak of COVID to go see Clark Gracie. So I ended up training in his headquarters and put me to the grinder for like a week. And I was fortunate enough for him to promote me. And then he congratulated me, gave me my brown belt, and said, okay, now you can go ahead and expand your game. And if you want to open a school, I'll help you. But now's your time to go figure things out on your own, you know. And I learned that, okay, brown belt, no one's teaching me. I got to teach myself. Yeah. So that was a big evolution in my jiu-jitsu. It's like, okay, I got to figure things out because I don't have an instructor. We're in lockdown. So I got to think, look at YouTubes, ask questions. And a lot of my time as brown belt, I'll just get somebody and go, hey, let me try this move on you. How does that feel? You know, I think I can actually pass on this side. Okay, try to pass. And then I try it again. And then I'll get a defense. I'll get a counter. And then I slowly start integrating new moves. And then, okay, let's start in the position and then let's roll. If you pass my guard, that's okay. I'll figure it out. And over time, I just start figuring things out. I just start adding to my game. Then I start teaching my friends. Okay, this is what I learned. Adding on to their game. And then we would roll just on that specific move in that specific position. Hours and hours. Just let's do rounds. And we're just shooting for that pass or that submission. And we know it's coming. So I see all the defense. I see all the counters. And I start learning, okay, I got to start changing from that attack of A to plan B and then plan C. And then when you hit them with the 1, 2, 3 combo, it's hard to stop. And that was like, to me, a huge awakening as a brown belt. It's like, okay, now it's time to figure shit out. I can't ask questions and I can't take a private. I can't even go to a school. I just got to figure things out. And then I would study a lot of matches on that particular move and see what happens in the match. And then take notes of that and then try to use it when I roll. And yeah, and then when things finally kind of opened up, I opened my school and I was able to get students, one at a time. And then Clark was able to come back and then teach seminars, I take privates, and we just continued as a brown belt in that direction. And after like 2 years, everything opened up back to normal. And we did the same thing repeatedly, just keep training with each other, keep visiting each other, keep taking privates. And what I realized was Clark is really good at raising the bar. He would roll with me at blue. It'd be easy. He'd let me pass. He'd let me sweep. And progressively, purple would be a little harder. At brown, he'd just start smashing me and making me better defensively, or at least escape earlier. And he just kept rolling with me with that intensity of raising the bar. From the last time we rolled 6 months, he'd remember what I would do. He'd remember my pass and my sweep. And I'd have to change my game, rolling with him each and every time. Yeah, and then at brown belt, I had to kind of focus more on my students and growing my school. And I did grow the school, and I competed less. And I just kind of pushed my students to get better and to compete. And I guess that was another transition, was to put the focus more on my students, and a brown belt be able to teach more efficiently so they understand, and teach it where the drilling and the time it takes them to learn one move, I can shorten it by doing more positional sparring and more reps and changing the scenario from standing to open guard to closed guard, and just repeat the same technique and make sure they can hit it, and let them know that there's an objective and there's also a concept behind a move, right? Why are we doing a scissor sweep? Basically, we're trying to pull, sweep, get on top, right? And you can adapt that with changing your foot position, but it's still a scissor sweep, right? It could be a butterfly version, it could be a spider version, but you still have the collar sleeve, and the concept's still there. Get them off balance, boom, you sweep them to the left or whatever it may be. And as an instructor, I think that really, I grew in a different way. Is how do I explain it to my students? How do I get them to learn it quicker? And the development as my brown belt was more of learning how to teach. That's what I did as a brown belt. And so, Clark ended up promoting me to black belt. And then black belt was a whole different mindset too, right? I had to learn how to become a black belt. I mean, the belt's just a piece of cloth, but psychologically you don't understand it till you wear it, and then now you got to grow into the belt. And then I'm like, oh, Clark, what do I do as a black belt? He's like, think about it. You have to become that black belt and present yourself in a professional manner and do what you feel is right. But always remember, someone's watching you. And you have to conduct yourself in that way. It's not just about you. It's about representing the art, representing Gracie Allegiance, which it was like an overwhelming responsibility on my shoulder. And I think that was the biggest change for me as a black belt. I was like, okay, he believes in me, but I don't want to disappoint him. I'm representing Gracie Allegiance. So it made me a better person. Like, I had to conduct myself more professionally and watch what I say, watch what I do. And people look up to me, and I got to say thank you and just be very gracious, because it's all about giving now. It's all about time and giving and really being compassionate to their situation. They're a white belt struggling. Okay, thank you for coming. Let's get you better. What do you want to work on? You want to work on passing? Okay, let's try a Toriando pass, and I'll show it to you. Now you try it. Oh, okay, let's make some adjustments. This will maybe help you. Okay, a little better, different angle, or maybe push it this way and then go back around the other way and then drop your shoulder. Okay, there you go. It's more about positive reinforcement and more about encouraging people to try, keep trying. And as a black belt, I think, especially with Professor Clark, he imprinted that in my brain.
That's excellent.
He didn't tell me. He just showed it to me. And because I became a black belt, I just paid more attention to how he spoke to people, how he taught classes, how he conducted himself. He's always smiling. He's always positive. So I'm like, okay, I want to be like Clark because I want to represent Gracie Allegiance. And I find out, even without the belt on, I'm conducting myself better. I'm not so negative. I'm not so harsh on people. I try to be more compassionate, and I'm more encouraging. I'm really working on that every day.
Michael, it's something I'm always fascinated about when I hear black belts talk about what it means to be a black belt and what the experience is like. There's usually two sides. There's the competitors who now have to learn how to adapt to competing in what I call the abyss, which is the black belt division. Because if you're competing as a purple or brown or blue belt or whatever, you have a kind of an idea of how many years the person on the other side of the mat's been training. It's usually around the same time frame as you. The skill gaps usually aren't so dramatic. But at the black belt level, if you're like your first week as a black belt and you're across the mat from a guy that's been a black belt for 10 years, there's probably going to be some skill deficit. So it's there's that side to things. The other side is just like you said, you learn to teach the art. You learn to bestow your knowledge upon your students. Chris Howder, actually, when I interviewed Chris Howder a while back, he mentioned that he likes to see it as being a carrier of the art, which I thought was a cool way of expressing that. But it's really neat, man. It's neat that you learn how to really instruct as a brown belt and then become the black belt as a black belt. That's a very cool way of looking at it, man. And your journey has been something else. I mean, really, you have such a cool story, and I appreciate you sharing it in depth with us. I wanted to do something with you real fast here. This is something I do every episode. It's a game called The Pummel. The Pummel is a series of random questions. Some of these are about jiu-jitsu. Some of them have nothing to do with jiu-jitsu. But if you're down to play The Pummel, I'd like to play this game with you.
Okay.
All right, man. Question 1. What's the worst job you ever had?
Was being a janitor in prison.
Yeah.
That was the worst job I had. My pride took a huge crash because the job before that I was a police officer. And then they gave me an assignment of janitor. And you're either going to say no and go to the shoe, or you're going to do it. So I had to be a janitor. I had to clean toilets, wax the floors, vacuum, clean the elevators, take orders from anybody and everybody. People would make comments and snicker because you're in the way, you know? And I had to keep my mouth shut. That was a huge change for me. And I was getting paid 10 cents an hour. Jeez. So on top of that, I was making 10 cents an hour and I had to show up on time, you know, and I had to do a good job or they wouldn't let me go back to what I wanted to do was work out, you know.
Wow.
So having to make myself humble and keep my mouth shut while I'm pushing a mop was a very good lesson for me to bring myself back down to earth and respect people more. I mean, after that, there's nobody that I don't respect.
Wow.
You know, if you're doing a job, I admire you. You're doing a good job. I don't care what you're doing. I respect that. Janitor, anything you're doing on up, I feel like that's great because you're earning it. And I had to learn from the very beginning of why am I here? You know, it's not for the badge. It's not for getting promoted. It's not for winning tournaments. It's just to be a kind person. So I carry that with me every day.
That's awesome.
Because there's no worse job than being a janitor in a prison. And I don't want to call out people, but they were mean to me. But I had to control myself. You know, I couldn't tell them off. I couldn't throw the broom at them. I just had to keep doing my job. 10 cents an hour doesn't really add up, bro.
It takes a lot of hours. Yeah. Jeez, man. Well, thank God you don't have to do that anymore. I think it's beautiful that you took such powerful life lessons with you, though, and like that new perspective that you carry now. And I try to look at the world the same way. I think that any job that someone is doing to the best of their ability is an honorable job. For sure.
Yeah.
It's great.
Exactly.
Great stuff. Michael, what do you think is a secret talent that you have that people might not know about?
Oh my God. I can only say my jiu-jitsu knowledge would be my secret talent. I mean, it's kind of on the same subject, but you know, I'm a good study of the art. So the jiu-jitsu history from like the Gracie family, Helio and Carlos, and I've been quizzing or asking Clark this every time I see him about his grandfather Carlos and the history of jiu-jitsu and how it spread. You know, his father Carly, 1972, brought Brazilian jiu-jitsu to America. A lot of people don't know that, but I'm very a historian, a student of jiu-jitsu history, and also an encyclopedia on techniques. You know, I love studying the latest moves. 50-50 when it came out, I got obsessed with that position. And then worm guard, I studied that. And then lasso guard, and then omoplata. I really went straight into that study and and practice of the omoplata. And whatever else is out there as far as buggy chokes or 411, I'm going to study that. I might not be good at it, but I'll learn it, just to know. So people they like asking me questions, and, they like kind of like picking my brain. And then we start a conversation, we start testing it out. I think for me, that's the only mental stimulation I get, is learning more jiu-jitsu. And that's why I watch your podcast. It's so interesting to hear from the people who has actually done it, and to get that. I'm always seeking the truth. So I'm always trying to find what really works and why. So through the past, through the Gracie family, to now, to modern day jiu-jitsu, what's the correlation and why does it work? And why will this work and why won't that work? I want to figure it out. And that's my special power. It's just the jiu-jitsu knowledge I have is just crazy.
That's great, man.
And I just had Paulo Miao a couple of days ago. We did a seminar. Paulo Miao came, and my brain was just on fire. What he showed, I'm like, oh my God, I never even thought of that. I couldn't sleep just thinking about what he showed and what he taught me. And I'm just so fired up to try it out and learn what he showed me, and that stimulation will last me for days. And people know that I'm kind of boring because I just talk about jiu-jitsu. So
we can all relate to that one, Michael, for sure.
Yeah.
I do appreciate you being a regular listener of the podcast, man. That means a lot.
Oh, I love your show.
That really does mean a lot. Have you said you're a historian of you're into jiu-jitsu history. Have you read Robert Drysdale's new book by any chance?
Oh, I didn't read his new one, but I have his other first book.
Opening the Closed Guard. Yeah, dude. His new one's awesome. I really recommend it.
Yeah.
Michael, let me ask you another one here. What do you think is the worst injury that you've ever had in jiu-jitsu?
Oh, I had so many. I had multiple broken fingers. I broke my wrist, popped and tore my knee several times. But the worst one was I had a back surgery. I had a herniated disc in my lower back. And that was actually from work. But because I got injured at work, I kept rolling, because you know how you're a knucklehead at white belt. And I just kept taking Tylenol and Bear and aspirin. I'd be fight through the pain. And after several months of having a herniated disc and taking Tylenol, it came to a crashing halt. I couldn't walk. And the MRI showed that my herniated disc was pinching my nerve, and then my legs started to go numb, and I couldn't walk, so I needed surgery.
Jeez.
And after that, I was limping around for a couple months. But again, being a dumbass, I went back to training too early. And that kind of re-aggravated my back to spaz, lock up, and I had to go through physical therapy and acupuncture and massage. And I think that's another reason why jiu-jitsu made me learn to listen to your body, take time off. So I took several months of rehab, and to come back and get stronger again, get my core, get my flexibility, and come back when I actually can roll. So it was really mentally testing me to be patient. That's what jiu-jitsu taught me at that time. It's be patient, or you're going to fuck up your back again and you're going to need another surgery. And so I'm just okay, I'm going to listen to the physical therapist and do my exercises and work my way back so I'm strong enough to roll, which took me about a year to fully recover. But during that time, I'm still drilling. I'm still going through the motions. I'm still exercising. I'm still reading, studying. And that was the worst injury. So now I'm hyper vigilant of the posture of my back, what positions I'm in. I don't like to hunch over. I don't pick up anybody anymore, from the ground level. I always want to get underneath their hips like an X guard and get my back straight, use my core. So that really opened up my mind to using my body in a correct way and not get re-injured.
It's important for people to hear because, I mean, injuries really are inevitable. If you train long enough in jiu-jitsu, you're going to injure something at some point. And it's important to know that that's not time to stop training necessarily. There's ways that you can train still without actually training. Like if you're not able to roll, you can still be studying video. You can still be watching instructionals. You can still be doing solo drills if your body, depending on your injury. But it's nice for people to hear that for sure, man. I'm happy that you're back to good function now. Cause that's hernia is a scary one.
Very lucky, and that's another reason why I train as much as I do. Back when I was trying to recover and I couldn't train, I really wanted to train, but I couldn't. I was recovering from my back injury. I made a promise to myself that if I'm healthy, I'm going to train no matter what. Whether I feel like it or not, I'm going to train. So every day, it really is a blessing to train. And I'm happy I can train because when I couldn't, I was miserable. And people that skip training when they're healthy, they're going to regret it because one day they're going to get sick or they're going to get injured and they can't train. They're going to really feel, I should have trained, and I don't want to ever feel that way anymore. I want to train to the best of my capabilities and just keep training. If I'm physically able, I'm going to train. So, yeah, just really happy that I can train now.
Michael, what do you think is your biggest phobia?
My biggest phobia is failure, to fail. I hate to lose. I'm talking about competition, and I hate to fail in life. I'm always trying to do better. But if I have to throw in the towel and be a failure, that's my biggest phobia is I try not to lose and I try not to be a failure. I'm always striving. So it's a good thing, but it keeps me up at night,
What do you think is your favorite bad food to eat? Favorite junk food?
Carbs.
Carbs, yeah. What do you go for usually?
Yeah. Bread, pasta, cake, cookies, pizza.
All the carbs.
You get this craving that's overwhelming. So carbs is my special treat. If I can't afford it, I eat a lot of pasta, rice, cake, cookies, whatever I can get my hands on, banana bread.
That's awesome. What's your most hated food? What's something you can't eat no matter what?
Kale.
Kale, yeah. Kale.
I was a vegan for a little while,
really?
For a couple months, and I hated kale, but I thought it was good for me, and I can't eat it anymore.
Yeah. Kale's not one of the most appealing tastes for sure.
No, it's not.
Who's your favorite superhero?
I would have to say Spider-Man would be my favorite.
Good choice. If you could have a superpower, what would you choose?
Just to have a mind where I can learn anything and have a computer brain to memorize stuff and to analyze stuff. Like, I think trying to be smarter would be a cool thing to have because I'm not the brightest guy in the world. I would say I'm average or below average, but I'm very stubborn and I'll keep trying until I get it. So I would love to be smarter.
That's all. I think that's something
that'd be awesome.
We could all wish for that one though. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Final question for the public game, Michael. If a zombie apocalypse breaks out right now in Hawaii, what's the first thing you're going to do?
I would immediately go to my parents' house because my dad is a hunter.
Nice.
And help him load up those rounds of magazines and stand guard. For any zombies break in, we'll light them up.
That's awesome. I love it, man. So you definitely thought this through. You have a plan. I could tell. That's awesome.
Well, I'm a former cop.
That's true. Yeah,
Former cop.
Yeah.
And my dad's a hunter, so
you guys are in
I
good
can
shape.
shoot anything.
You're in good shape for sure. You're ready to go. And Michael, that was the final question for the Pummel game. Congratulations, you win. You got your double underhooks.
Thank you.
Of course, man. Michael, I wanted to ask you specifically, you have a great instructional with us on a topic that I feel like doesn't get covered very much among all the other instructionals we have. It's the back triangle. Tell us, when did the rear triangle become an important part of your game?
I think I really fell in love with it at purple belt. And I kept finding it being done to me, and I couldn't escape. So I started to learn how to do it to other people. I started catching people. And I really loved it because if you could lock it in and you know how to lock it in good, it's really a hard position to escape. It's not like a conventional triangle that you do from the guard where the person is facing you. That conventional triangle is dangerous because they'll stack you. So I abandoned any triangle from the guard because I'm smaller and I hate getting stacked. And I would get crushed by big guys, my neck, my back, and then your legs would just pop open. So I just started to figure out when you triangle people from the back, it's one is sneakier and two is harder for them to escape. And that's when I just started to do it to everybody. I just started to every row try to put it on people. And once I lock it in, they're not getting out. So I just like, okay, let me see if there's any instructional on it. And then I was looking, hey, nobody put out an instructional yet. So like, okay, if I can, I'm going to do an instructional. So I just started to develop that back triangle better. And then I emailed BJJ Fanatics and they're like, okay, if you fill out the application, you get approved, you can send in your instructional. And I got approved. And then you got to write an outline on like 15 chapters. And I did, sent it in. They said, okay, we're interested. Now record it, send it in, and we'll get it approved. And I just had to think deeper, like, what do I want to say chapter 1? What do I want to say chapter 2? And what's my setups? What's my entries? What's my finishes? What's my combos? What could be the possible defense? And I had to write this outline in chapters over and over and over. And then we finally did the recording. And I was still fine-tuning it, rolling every day. My students got kind of upset because I would just back triangle everybody.
Hyper-focused, yeah.
Yeah, it was just like a laboratory. I just like, okay, I'm going to back triangle you. And they're like, no. And then I make them try to defend it and then find a way around it and then still get them in the back triangle. And just write it down. That was a good laboratory for me. And I got it down to a package and I sent it in. It got approved. I was really surprised, And now it's selling pretty good. And I teach seminars on it and people that buy it, they like it. And people come to me just private lessons for that technique. And they end up using it on their teammates and they're all pretty happy with it. Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, it's one of my techniques that I love from the back. I use that a lot. I'll oftentimes when I have back control on somebody, I'll try to isolate their arm inside my hooks and then transition up from there. What path do you usually find yourself taking to get to the position itself?
Well, I like it from the back, but guys roll with me, they're defending from the back. Right? Naturally, they know I'm going to go for the back triangle. So lately, my favorite way is from the mount.
Interesting. Cool.
I'll get a gift wrap off of it, get the gift wrap, and then I'll grab the free arm, and then I'll do like a high mount to chair seated back take.
Yeah.
And I'll just throw my leg over. And both of their arms are stuck. So I just throw my leg right over the shoulder and lock in the back triangle.
That's awesome. That's a great setup, man.
That's almost you can't defend it. I don't think. Once I lock it in, it's almost impossible to get out because I have both of your arms tied. And then once I take the chair sit to the back, it's like, it goes in like that. And once you lock that triangle and your foot's behind the back, they can't get out. Yeah.
Very difficult to escape. Yeah, like you said, it's not something that where people can try to stack out or try to.
You're right.
Yeah, it's you're facing the other direction, and there's not much wiggle room. So, very effective position. What do you think are some of the most important proper like finishing mechanics to finish the triangle itself? What are things that you see people miss when they land in the position but have trouble finishing it to get the tap?
Yeah, the common thing I see people not getting the finish is they don't put their foot all the way through underneath the armpit. Okay. So when you're trying to lock that back triangle over shoulder and it goes through here, you have to get your ankle out the armpit so you can figure 4 lock your legs. A lot of beginners put it here and then they try to lock it. It's not going to hold because they'll just peel your leg off and they come out the back triangle. But if you shoot your ankle past the armpit and then you figure for this and hide your foot behind the back, that's pretty much a done deal.
I love that you pointed out that I think a lot of people, when they think of rear triangles, they think of as an attack when you already have the back. But there's so many options for entries from mount, and I've seen people set it up a lot from crucifix as well. So it's a very diverse position to attack from. And once you get there, it's a lot of trouble for your opponent. So for anyone out there that wants to check this instructional out, I really do recommend it. It's called the Python Back Triangle by Michael Chu, and it's available right now at BJJFanatics.com. So you guys go over and check that out if that's an aspect of your game you're looking to improve upon. Michael, man, in closing, what are some of your major goals for 2024, man? What are some things you hope to accomplish this year?
My major goal is to improve as an instructor. I do teach at another school where I'm learning a lot with different students, different instructors. And again, like I mentioned, we had Paulo Miao. And previous to that, Clark Gracie and his brother, Ralston Gracie, came for a seminar. And I'm very a student of teaching now. I'm very focused on being a better instructor and learning different styles and how to actually get the technique to make sense to the student and get them to do the right drills and then to get the positional sparring for them to imprint it in their brain. That's really what I'm focused on, is being a better instructor. And growing my school would be the next goal of mine, is to get more students, working on the marketing aspect there. And then the third goal would be maybe compete another masters this year if I can. I like the black belt competition. It's fun.
Well, folks, unfortunately, we're fresh out of time. Michael, you have such an interesting story. It really is a very unique journey that you've been on in your life, and I appreciate you being so open and sharing all the details about it. It's rare that we get to meet police officers who have been inmates who then become jiu-jitsu instructors. You truly are one of a kind, man. So I appreciate you taking the time to be here today, and I appreciate you sharing all the lessons that you've learned in that journey as well. And you're welcome back anytime. I'd love to have you back in the future.
Thank you very much, Ryan. I'm very honored and appreciate this. Talk about my story, and I just want everybody to learn that jiu-jitsu is a great way to better your life, not just from a fighting or self-defense aspect, but spiritually, it'll make you better. And I think even as a black belt, I'm still striving to be a better person. That's basically what it does for you. And I'm working on it every day. Yeah. So I want everybody to try it, you know? Well,
I appreciate you leading, being in the front lines with your academy out in Honolulu, and bringing people into the art and showing them the way, man. That's really, we need more people like you out there doing that. So thank you. And for anyone out there that wants to keep up with Michael, it's real easy to do so. He's really active on Instagram. He's got 2 different Instagram accounts. One is for his academy and the other is more for jiu-jitsu content. The first one is Gracie Allegiance Honolulu. That's for his academy. And then Unity HI 808. So Unity HI 808. That's where he posts a lot of like video clips and jiu-jitsu content. If you guys are ever traveling through Hawaii, he's got a phenomenal school out there, Gracie Allegiance Honolulu. Drop in, get some training. If you can't make it out to Honolulu, thankfully you can learn from Michael anywhere in the world here at BJJFanatics.com. We talked in depth today about his instructional, the Python back triangle, which is one of the, if not the only one, it's one of the very few instructionals we have that specifically focuses on the rear triangle. So great position to be good at, especially if you like attacking the back. So go check that out. And that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. I really appreciate you tuning in. Please stay tuned for the next episode of the BJJ Fanatics podcast.